High Counselor Zix Natra of the Galactic Confederation slouched in his anti-gravity throne, his tentacles twitching with barely contained anxiety. The emergency meeting of the Confederation's ruling body had been called with such haste that several of the esteemed members were still in their sleep sacks, yawning and oozing various bodily fluids in their rush to make sense of the crisis at hand. Esteemed colleague Zix Natra began, his voice modulator struggling to maintain a calm tone. I regret to inform you that we face an unprecedented threat to galactic peace and stability. A chorus of gasps, clicks, and wet slurping noises filled the chamber as the assembled alien leaders expressed their shock and dismay. "Is it the Vorlax hive mind?" croaked Ambassador Blorp, his gelatinous form quivering. "Have they finally figured out how to conquer without getting lost in their own neural pathways?" Worse, Zix Natra replied, his eye stalks drooping. "It's the humans." The chamber erupted into chaos. Several council members fainted outright, their unconscious forms drifting lazily in the low-gravity environment. Others began frantically accessing their neural interfaces, no doubt updating their last will and testaments. Order bellowed Zix Natra, his voice modulator cranked to maximum volume. "We must approach this crisis with the calm, measured response that has made our Confederation the laughingstock, the envy of the galaxy." As the pandemonium subsided, a small, furry creature with approximately 17 limbs raised what was presumably a hand. "High Counselor." It squeaked. "What exactly have the humans done this time? Have they weaponized their spicy food, discovered faster than light travel through the power of interpretive dance?" Zix Natra's tentacles curled in on themselves, as if trying to hide from the truth. "If only it was something so mundane, Counselor Fluffles. No, I'm afraid the situation is far direr. Our deep cover operatives on Earth have discovered that the humans have obtained the cosmic nullifier." The silence that followed was so profound that one could have heard a Zorgon flea's whisker drop. And then, predictably, all hell broke loose. "Impossible. Bam, we're doomed. We're doomed. I knew I should have invested in that doomsday bunker on Proxima Centauri IV." Zix Natra let the panic wash over him for a moment, taking a perverse pleasure in the absolute meltdown of the galaxy's supposedly wisest beings. When he'd had his fill of the chaos, and when Ambassador Blorp began to liquefy from stress, he called for order once more. "Yes, my friends, it is true. Somehow these primitive Deathworlders have acquired the most devastating weapon in the known universe. The cosmic nullifier, capable of erasing entire star systems from existence with a single activation." "But how?" demanded General Claxex, her exoskeleton clattering in agitation. "The nullifier was lost eons ago, hidden away by the precursors to prevent its misuse." Zix Natra's eye stalk swiveled towards the view screen dominating the far wall of the chamber. "Perhaps it's best if I show you. Behold, security footage captured by our agents on Earth." The screen flickered to life, revealing a scene so mundane and yet so terrifying that several council members had to be restrained from fleeing the room. There, in what appeared to be a typical human dwelling, sat a small human female child. In her hands was an object that made every alien in the room recoil in horror, a small, cube-shaped device covered in colorful squares. "By the great void," whispered Ambassador Blorp, "she's holding it. Why isn't she vaporized? Where's the carnage? The devastation? The reordering of space-time itself?" The gathered leaders watched in stunned silence as the human child manipulated the cube, twisting its sections with casual ease. Each turn of the device sent shockwaves of panic through the alien observers, who flinched collectively, expecting reality itself to unravel at any moment. "As you can see," Zix Natra said grimly, "the humans have not only acquired the cosmic nullifier but have somehow adapted it for entertainment purposes." "Entertainment?" shrieked Counselor Fluffles, several of his limbs flailing in different directions. "They're using a weapon that could destroy the fabric of space-time as a toy." "Precisely," Zix Natra confirmed, his tentacles drooping even further. "Our analysts believe they call it a Rubik's Cube, apparently. The goal is to align all the colored squares on each side." The footage continued, showing the human child growing increasingly frustrated with the cube. She shook it, banged it against a nearby table, and even attempted to pry it apart with her teeth. "Oh, merciful cosmos," moaned General Galactic. "She's trying to activate it. We're witnessing the end of everything." But the universe stubbornly refused to end. The human child eventually gave up, tossing the cosmic nullifier aside with a pout before wandering off screen, presumably in search of some other potentially civilization-ending plaything. As the footage ended, the council chamber descended into a cacophony of panicked discussions, wild theorizing, and at least 3 impromptu prayer circles. Silence roared Zix Natra, his patience finally snapping like an overtaxed gravity tether. "We must approach this situation with logic and reason, not gibbering terror," he paused, realizing the irony of his outburst. Well, perhaps a little gibbering terror, but mostly logic and reason. Ambassador Blorp, who had partially reconstituted himself, raised a pseudopod. "High Counselor, if I may. Perhaps we've misunderstood the nature of the cosmic nullifier all along. Could it be that its true power lies not in destruction but in frustration?" A thoughtful murmur rippled through the chamber. Zix Natra's eye stalks quivered as he considered the notion. "An intriguing hypothesis, Ambassador. But it doesn't explain how the humans acquired the device, nor why they seem immune to its effects." "Maybe," ventured Councillor Fluffles, all 17 of his limbs now raised in excitement. "The humans are simply too primitive to activate it properly. Like giving a quantum computer to a Gluparian slime mold." General Clax chittered in agreement. "Yes, their feeble minds can't possibly comprehend the true nature of the device. We may have dodged a galaxy-ending bullet thanks to their own incompetence." Zix Natra felt a headache forming in all 3 of his brains. "While that's certainly possible, it doesn't solve our immediate problem. The cosmic nullifier is still on Earth in the hands of beings who think nothing of letting their young manipulate it like a common plaything. We must take action." "I say we destroy the planet immediately," declared General Clax, her mandibles clicking aggressively. "It's the only way to be sure, and risk activating the nullifier in the process," countered Ambassador Blorp. "We'd be doing the humans' work for them." "Perhaps," said Councillor Fluffles, his fur standing on end with static electricity generated by his furious thinking, "we could steal it back. A covert operation to replace the nullifier with a harmless replica." Zix Natra's tentacles perked up slightly. "Now that's an idea with potential. But who would we send on such a perilous mission? It would require infiltrating human society, bypassing their primitive yet surprisingly effective security measures, and extracting the nullifier without arousing suspicion." The chamber fell silent as each council member tried to avoid making eye contact with the High Counselor, lest they be volunteered for what was surely a suicide mission. Finally, a small voice piped up from the back of the room. "I'll do it." All eyes, stalks, and sensory organs turned to face the speaker, a diminutive, grey-skinned being with large, almond-shaped eyes. "Agent Zeta," Zix Natra said, his voice modulator barely concealing his surprise. "I didn't realize the Covert Operations Division was represented at this meeting." The grey alien shrugged, an unsettlingly human gesture. "We're everywhere, High Counselor. It's kind of our thing." "And you believe you can successfully infiltrate human society and retrieve the cosmic nullifier?" Zix Natra pressed, hope and skepticism warring in his tone. Agent Zeta allowed himself a small smile. "With all due respect, sir, we've been doing it for decades. Crop circles, cattle mutilations, the occasional abduction. It's all been practiced for a moment like this. My team and I can have the nullifier in our possession within 1 Earth week." A wave of relief washed over the council chamber, punctuated by the sound of Ambassador Blorp finally fully re-solidifying. "Very well," Zix Natra declared, his tentacles wiggling with newfound optimism. "Agent Zeta, you have the full backing of the Galactic Confederation. Retrieve the cosmic nullifier at all costs, but remember, under no circumstances are you to attempt to activate or solve the device. The fate of the galaxy rests in your appendages." As the emergency session adjourned and the various alien leaders began filing out of the chamber, some still updating their wills, just in case, Zix Natra found himself alone with Agent Zeta. "I don't suppose," the High Counselor said hesitantly, "that while you're down there you could bring back one of those Rubik's Cube devices. For research purposes." Agent Zeta's large eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Of course, High Counselor. But I feel obligated to warn you, once you start twisting those colorful squares, it's nearly impossible to stop. The humans may be onto something with their entertainment after all." As the grey alien shuffled off to prepare for his mission, Zix Natra settled back into his anti-gravity throne, his mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps, he mused, the true power of the cosmic nullifier lay not in its ability to destroy worlds, but in its capacity to unite them. After all, what force in the universe was more binding than shared frustration over an unsolvable puzzle? With a flick of a tentacle, he opened a secure channel to his private quarters. "Computer," he said, his voice modulator set to its most secretive whisper. "Research Earth import regulations for small, cube-shaped objects, and clear my schedule for the next solar cycle. I have a feeling I'm going to be very busy." 1 Earth week later, in a nondescript suburban home. "Mom." "Dad, have you seen my Rubik's Cube? I can't find it anywhere." Little Susie Thompson's voice echoed through the house, a mixture of frustration and genuine concern colouring her words. Her parents exchanged knowing glances over their morning coffee. "Sorry, sweetie," her mother called back, barely concealing a smirk. "Maybe it got mixed up with the donation boxes we sent to the thrift store." Susie's dramatic groan could be heard even from the kitchen. "But I was so close to solving it. Only 26 more years and I would have had it." As the sound of small feet stomping up the stairs faded away, Mr. Thompson leaned in close to his wife. "You really think those grey fellas from the government took it?" he whispered. Mrs. Thompson shrugged, taking a sip of her coffee. "That's what they said. Something about it being part of a critical research project, offered us a brand new one in exchange too." Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed. "Seems mighty suspicious if you ask me. What could the government possibly want with a toy?" "Who knows," Mrs. Thompson replied with a chuckle. "Maybe they're trying to solve the energy crisis with the power of colourful plastic cubes. Lord knows Susie generated enough frustration with that thing to power a small city." As the Thompsons shared a laugh over their daughter's missing puzzle, neither of them noticed the faint shimmer in the air just outside their kitchen window. Had they looked closely, they might have seen the outline of a sleek, saucer-shaped craft slowly rising into the sky, its cloaking device not quite able to mask the excited vibrations of its occupants. Inside the ship, Agent Zeta cradled the cosmic nullifier, or rather, the Rubik's Cube, with a mixture of reverence and trepidation. His large eyes darted between the colourful puzzle and the ship's view screen, which showed the rapidly shrinking image of Earth. "Mission accomplished, team," he said, his typically monotone voice tinged with something that might have been excitement. "Let's get this back to the Confederation before." Click. Turn. Click. The sound of plastic squares sliding against each other filled the small cockpit. Agent Zeta's co-pilot, a being that looked suspiciously like a classic grey alien from human pop culture, froze with his three-fingered hand still on the cube. Agent Epsilon Zeta hissed, "What are you doing?" "We were explicitly ordered not to attempt to solve the device." Agent Epsilon's large, black eyes somehow managed to look sheepish. I couldn't help it, sir. It's just so enticing. Look at all those colors, begging to be aligned." Before Zeta could snatch the cosmic nullifier away, Epsilon gave it another twist. And another. And another. "Stop that this instant," Zeta demanded, reaching for the cube. But as his fingers brushed its smooth surface, he too felt the irresistible urge to give it just one little turn, just to see what would happen. Click. Turn. Click. As Earth disappeared from view and the ship hurtled towards the stars, The two alien agents found themselves locked in an epic battle, not against each other, or even against the cube itself, but against the maddening compulsion to solve the unsolvable puzzle. Maybe if we just... No, that's not right, Epsilon muttered. His long fingers a blur as he manipulated the cube. Let me try, Zeta insisted, snatching it away. I think I see a pattern forming on the green side. Or is that blue? Hours passed. Then days. The ship's autopilot dutifully kept them on course for Confederation space, but neither Zeta nor Epsilon noticed. They were too engrossed in the colorful, infuriating enigma that had once been revered as the most destructive weapon in the galaxy. By the time their ship docked at the Confederation's central space station, both agents were bleary-eyed, their grey skin pale from lack of sleep and proper nutrition. But still, they persisted, passing the cube back and forth as they stumbled out of their craft. High Counselor Zixnatra was waiting for them, his tentacles practically vibrating with anticipation. Agents, you've returned. Do you have the cosmic nullifier? Zeta and Epsilon looked up from the cube, seeming to notice their surroundings for the first time in days. Oh yes, High Counselor Zeta said, his voice hoarse from disuse. We have it right here. But I'm afraid we've made a terrible mistake. Zixnatra's eye stalks quivered with fear. What? What have you done? You didn't. Activate it, did you? Epsilon shook his head sadly. Worse, sir. We tried to solve it. A gasp ran through the assembled Confederation officials. Zixnatra's tentacles curled in on themselves in horror. And what happened? Why hasn't the universe imploded? Zeta held out the Rubik's Cube, its sides a jumbled mess of colors. Nothing happened, sir. Except, we can't stop trying to solve it. It's maddening, frustrating, and yet, oddly satisfying when you get even one side completed. Zixnatra's curiosity got the better of him. He reached out a tentacle, gently taking the cube from Zeta's hand. As soon as his appendage made contact with the smooth plastic surface, he felt a strange tingle run through his entire being. Fascinating, Zixnatra murmured, his eye stalks focused intently on the cube. Such a simple design, and yet... Click. Turn. Click. The High Counselor's tentacles moved of their own accord, twisting and turning the sections of the cube with increasing speed. The assembled officials watched in horror as their esteemed leader became consumed by the very object they had feared would bring about the end of the universe. Sir General Claax ventured, her exoskeleton rattling nervously. Perhaps we should place the nullifier in a secure containment unit before. Quiet, Zixnatra snapped, his eyes never leaving the cube. I think I've almost got this blue side figured out. Or is it green? Why do these infernal colors all look so similar? Ambassador Blorp oozed forward, his gelatinous form rippling with concern. High Counselor, with all due respect, we have more pressing matters to discuss. The humans still possess knowledge of the cosmic nullifier. What if they create more? We could be facing a galaxy-wide epidemic of... Fun suggested Councillor Fluffles, who had somehow acquired his own Rubik's Cube and was attempting to solve it with multiple limbs simultaneously. Precisely, Blorp gurgled. Can you imagine? Entire civilizations grinding to a halt as they obsess over aligning colored squares. It would be chaos, anarchy. Productivity across the Confederation would plummet. Zixnatra finally tore his gaze away from the cube, his tentacles still absently fiddling with it. You're right, of course. We must take action. We need to understand this device, to study its effects on various species. Perhaps if we can unravel its mysteries, we can find a way to counteract its insidious influence. Are you suggesting, General Claax asked, her mandibles clicking in disbelief, that we intentionally expose ourselves to this mimetic hazard? For science, Zixnatra declared solemnly, raising the Rubik's Cube above his head like a holy relic, for the good of the galaxy. And so began the Confederation's top-secret project Chromatic Conundrum. A secure research facility was hastily constructed on a remote asteroid, staffed by the brightest minds the galaxy had to offer. Their mission to unlock the secrets of the Rubik's Cube and develop a defense against its mind-bending properties. Weeks turned into months. The facility's corridors echoed with the constant click-click-click of cubes being manipulated, punctuated by occasional cries of triumph or frustration. Scientists from 100 different species worked tirelessly, their disparate anatomies providing unique approaches to the puzzle. Dr. Zorksax, a hyper-intelligent shade of blue, developed a quantum algorithm that could theoretically solve the cube in negative time. Unfortunately, every attempt to implement the algorithm caused localized temporal anomalies, including one incident that saw the entire research team speaking in reverse for a full solar cycle. Professor Squigles, a cephalopod savant from the ocean world of Hydros IX, utilized all 8 of her tentacles to manipulate multiple cubes simultaneously. She claimed to have achieved a state of cube enlightenment, but was unable to communicate her findings as she refused to relinquish her grip on the puzzles. Even the hive mind of the Vorlax, usually occupied with debating the merits of various types of interpretive dance, turned its considerable mental resources to the Rubik's Cube problem. They managed to solve one side in record time, but the resulting consensus hangover left them with a collective migraine that lasted for weeks. As the Confederation's top brass fretted over reports of declining productivity and increasing cube-related incidents across multiple sectors, a breakthrough finally came from an unexpected source. Janitor Gloop, a lowly Slorbian maintenance technician, had been tasked with cleaning up the aftermath of a particularly messy experiment involving a Rubik's Cube, a particle accelerator, and an ill-advised attempt to quantum tunnel the colored squares into alignment. As he mopped up the rainbow-hued sludge that coated the lab floors, Gloop absently picked up a half-melted cube and began fiddling with it. To the astonishment of the observing scientists, Gloop's pseudopods flowed over the cube's surface, effortlessly aligning the colors in a matter of seconds. The Slorbian seemed utterly unaffected by the cube's mind-bending properties, solving and scrambling it repeatedly with the casual ease of one wiping down a countertop. Incredible, exclaimed Dr. Zorlax, the facility's lead researcher. Janitor Gloop, how are you doing that? Are you immune to the cube's effects? Gloop's eye stalks swiveled towards the scientist, a look of confusion crossing his amorphous features. Effects? It's just a fun little diversion, isn't it? Helps pass the time while I'm cleaning up after you lot. The assembled researchers exchanged baffled glances. How could this simple custodian possess the key to unraveling the greatest mystery in the galaxy? Word of Gloop's immunity spread quickly through the facility and soon reached the ears of High Counselor Zix Natra himself. The Confederation leader, now sporting dark circles under all 4 of his eyes and a perpetual twitch in his tentacles, immediately ordered Gloop to be brought before the full Galactic Council. As Gloop oozed into the Grand Chamber, the assembled leaders of 1,000 worlds fell silent. Many clutched their own Rubik's Cubes, unable to put them down even for this momentous occasion. Janitor Gloop Zix Natra began, his voice modulator struggling to maintain a dignified tone. You stand before us as the potential savior of galactic civilization. Tell us, what is your secret? How have you mastered the cosmic nullifier where so many have failed? Gloop's body rippled in what might have been a shrug. Dunno, really. It's just a bit of fun, innit? You line up the colors, they look nice for a bit, then you mix EM up and start over. No big mystery. The chamber erupted into chaos as council members debated the profound implications of Gloop's words. Was the key to resisting the cube's addictive properties simply not caring about the outcome? As the Confederation's greatest minds grappled with this paradigm-shifting concept, a junior communications officer burst into the chamber, waving a data pad frantically. High Counselor, the officer squeaked, her feathers ruffled with excitement. We've just intercepted a transmission from Earth. You need to see this immediately. Zix Natra reluctantly set down his own well-worn Rubik's Cube and accepted the data pad. As he read its contents, his eye stalks widened in shock. By the great void, he whispered, it's worse than we could have possibly imagined. The view screen flickered to life, displaying a colorful advertisement that sent ripples of terror through the assembled aliens. New from Rubik S the 10x10x10 cube. Can you solve the ultimate challenge? As images of the monstrous new puzzle flashed across the screen, accompanied by upbeat music and the sounds of human excitement, the Galactic Confederation faced a chilling realization their trials were only beginning. Zixnatra's tentacles curled in on themselves as he contemplated the gravity of the situation. "My fellow council members," he said, his voice heavy with dread, "it seems we have grossly underestimated the human's capacity for self-torture. Entertainment. This new development changes everything." Ambassador Blorp, who had partially liquefied from stress, managed to pull himself together enough to ask the question on everyone's mind, what do we do now? "High Counselor, if a 3x3x3 cube nearly brought our civilization to its knees, what hope do we have against this? This monstrosity." A heavy silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the soft click, 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 click of those still unable to put down their cubes. It was Janitor Gloop who finally spoke up, his voice gurgling with what might have been amusement. "Begging your pardons, your majesties and excellencies and whatnot," the Slorbian said, oozing forward, "but aren't you lot missing the point?" All eyes, stalks and sensory organs turned to face the humble custodian. Zixnatra's eye stalks quivered with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "What do you mean, Janitor Gloop? What point are we missing?" Gloop's body rippled in what might have been a chuckle. "Well, see, the humans ain't using these cubes as weapons, are they? They're not trying to conquer the galaxy or rewrite the laws of physics. They're just having a laugh, challenging themselves for the fun of it." The council members exchanged baffled glances. The concept of engaging with a potentially reality-altering device purely for fun was so alien to them that it took several moments to process. But General Claax chittered, her exoskeleton clattering in confusion. What about the productivity loss? The potential for societal collapse as entire populations become enslaved to these infernal puzzles? Gloop's eye stalks wobbled in what might have been the Slorbian equivalent of an eye roll. "With all due respect, Ma'am, that's a load of Zorgon droppings. Look around you. Half the council's been fiddling with these cubes for months now, and the galaxy hasn't exactly fallen apart, has it?" A murmur of realization rippled through the chamber. It was true, despite their fears of impending doom, life across the Confederation had continued more or less as normal. If anything, incidents of interspecies conflict had decreased, as potential troublemakers found themselves too engrossed in their cubes to cause mischief. Zixnatra's tentacles uncurled slightly as he considered Gloop's words. "Are you suggesting," he said slowly, "that we've been looking at this all wrong? That instead of a threat, these Rubik's cubes might actually be beneficial?" Gloop's body jiggled in what was unmistakably a nod. "Now you're getting it. Think about it, you've got beings from all over the galaxy working together, sharing strategies, bonding over their shared frustration. When's the last time you saw that happen without someone starting a war?" The High Counselor's eye stalk swiveled as he surveyed the chamber. Sure enough, he saw members of species that had been bitter enemies for eons now huddled together, comparing cube-solving techniques and sharing in each other's small victories. By the cosmic ballet Zixnatra breathed, the human child was right all along. It is a toy. A brilliantly designed, maddeningly addictive toy, but a toy nonetheless. As the implications of this revelation sank in, a new sense of purpose filled the council chamber. If a simple puzzle could bring together the diverse species of the Confederation, what other lessons might they learn from humanity's peculiar approach to problem-solving and entertainment? "My fellow council members," Zixnatra declared, raising his Rubik's Cube high, "I propose a new initiative. Instead of fearing human ingenuity, we shall embrace it. Let's establish cultural exchange programs, study their games and pastimes, and see what other wonders we might discover." A cheer went up from the assembled aliens, accompanied by the enthusiastic waving of tentacles, pseudopods, and the occasional plasma tendril. As the council eagerly began drafting plans for this new era of human-alien cooperation, Janitor Gloop quietly oozed towards the exit, a small smile playing across his amorphous features. Just before he slipped out of the chamber, Gloop felt a gentle tap on his gelatinous shoulder. He turned to find High Counselor Zixnatra regarding him with all four eyes. Janitor Gloop Zixnatra said, his voice modulator struggling to convey the appropriate mix of gratitude and authority, "You have done the Confederation a great service today. Is there anything we can offer you as a reward? A promotion, perhaps? Your own research team?" Gloop's body rippled in what might have been embarrassment. "That's right kind of you, High Counselor, but I'm happy where I am. Though, if it's not too much trouble, I wouldn't mind getting my hands on one of them new 10x10x10 cubes. Sounds like a proper challenge, that does." Zixnatra's tentacles curled in amusement. "Consider it done, my friend. And who knows, perhaps you'll be the first in the galaxy to solve it." As Gloop oozed away, already daydreaming about the colorful monstrosity that awaited him, Zixnatra turned back to the council chamber. The air buzzed with excitement as representatives from 100 worlds excitedly discussed potential human pastimes to explore. "Apparently they have these things called video games," Ambassador Blork gurgled enthusiastically. "Simulated realities where you can do anything from racing light-speed vehicles to managing virtual civilizations." And Sports General Claax added, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "Physical contests of skill and strategy. Did you know they have one where they hit a tiny ball with sticks and then run in a diamond shape? Utterly pointless, yet oddly compelling." As the chatter washed over him, Zixnatra felt a weight lift from his shoulders, or the closest approximation thereof. The great crisis that had threatened to tear the Confederation apart had instead brought them closer together, all thanks to humanity's peculiar blend of ingenuity, competitiveness, and sheer stubborn determination to have fun in the face of cosmic insignificance. Perhaps Zixnatra mused, absently fiddling with his own cube, "We've been going about this galactic peace thing all wrong. Forget about treaties and trade agreements. What we really need is more games." And so, as news of the Confederation's change in policy spread across the stars, a new era of human-alien relations dawned. Toy stores and game shops became the new hubs of interstellar diplomacy. Chess tournaments drew participants from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. And more than one alien species found itself utterly addicted to human reality TV shows, sparking heated debates about whether the real housewives of various Earth locations were, in fact, accurate representations of human social dynamics. As for the Rubik's Cube, it maintained its place of honor in alien society, a constant reminder of the day they learned that sometimes the most powerful weapons in the universe are the ones that bring people together, even if they also make you want to tear your hair or tentacles or exoskeleton out in frustration. And somewhere on a distant space station, a humble Slorbian janitor whistled contentedly to himself as he solved his 10x10x10 cube for the 1,000th time, blissfully unaware that he had become a legend in his own right, Gloop the Wise. The alien who taught the galaxy how to chill out and enjoy a good puzzle.